This is Stephanie Murphy for Let's Talk Bitcoin. I'm here today talking with Michael W. Dean and Jeremy Rand. They are two people behind the project called Free Speech Me. Free Speech Me is something that I think is really going to change a lot. It's got a lot of potential here. I'll let them explain what it is. But first of all, gentlemen, welcome to Let's Talk Bitcoin. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk with me.
Thanks.
So tell me, what is Free Speech Me? What is the elevator pitch?
I'll give the exciting, this is going to change the world one. And then Jeremy can tell you the technical reasons of why it'll actually change the world, because everybody always says, my thing will change the world. First of all, there are several people who did the work behind this that Jeremy's standing on the shoulders of. He's connected with the Namecoin team. Namecoin is a decentralized cryptocurrency, kind of like Bitcoin. It's probably the only currency that's not a threat to Bitcoin. And people who are heavily invested in Bitcoin should know this. It's not a competition. It complements Bitcoin because it's barely a currency. The thing that would change the world and what people should be working at the most is commerce sites located anywhere that take Bitcoin only and run on Namecoin, that have their DNS served on Namecoin, because they can't be shut down and hacked, taken away by governments nearly as easily as .com or .whatever. So
for anybody who's totally unfamiliar with this, Namecoin is a spin-off of Bitcoin. It's an altcoin, and its main function is really not as a currency. It's as a distributed domain name system or DNS system.
And until recently, it was difficult and unsecure to surf .bit domains. It's really easy to set them up, but it was hard to surf them and not secure. Jeremy's come up with this plugin called Free Speech Me that makes it really easy. So I'm going to let Jeremy take over from here.
Namecoin offers DNS that's decentralized and is difficult to censor, hijack, or surveil. It's an advantage over standard DNS. But when Namecoin was originally set up, and up until I got involved with it, there really wasn't a good, easy-to-use way that was still secure. There were some people who were changing their DNS settings on their computer to point to a DNS server that retrieved stuff from the blockchain, and that kind of defeats the security point of Namecoin's DNS, because then you still have all the security issues that someone can hijack your connection. If they're on your network, they can just change what you see from that DNS server. The DNS server you configure also has the ability to hijack your requests, send you whatever they want for whatever malicious purposes they want. So that's really not a secure way to use it. It defeats the point. There were some other methods of using .bit, which is the DNS system that Namecoin sets up. There were things like NM control, NMC socks, things like that. But in general, they were very difficult to set up, especially for novices. There really weren't many people using things like that. And when I was hanging around in the Namecoin IRC chat, it was very frequent to see people in there advising, oh yeah, you just use this DNS server, everything will be fine. And people didn't seem to be aware that this was a really insecure way of using it. And so I thought, Namecoin seems like a really good way of preventing censorship, improving security, improving privacy by some. Maybe we should be using it for that rather than just having it either security for the elite or insecurity for everyone else.
You've got a plugin here, the Free Speech Me plugin, that's going to allow people to easily view .bit domains without changing their DNS settings or doing any of this complicated sounding stuff that most people probably don't know how to do.
That's right.
Why would somebody want to view websites that are .bit websites? What's the advantage of having .bit domains that are not registered through a central registry like ICANN?
When you make a DNS request for a website or for any internet service for that matter, standard DNS is really, really insecure. It's also not private, and it can be easily censored. So when I want to access, google.com or something like that, any website, my computer has to send a request to a DNS server. Now, anyone who's on my network, as well as anyone who's on the DNS server's network and the DNS server themselves, they can see that my IP address went to google.com. And so that's a privacy issue. The DNS server, or anyone between me and the DNS server, can then either falsely say, oh, google.com doesn't exist, there's nothing here, or it can redirect me to a false website, which might be either a phishing site of some kind, or it might be a site that just installs malware on anyone who views it. It's generally not a secure system.
Can you tell me some examples of basically problems with the standard DNS system before? I know you got some on your Kickstarter page, but tell the listeners about that.
Well, Jeremy could give better examples of that. I know one is that recently Facebook was redirected to a fake Facebook site. You know, it's one thing if they redirect it to a site that says, like, you've been pwned, owned, haha, you're an idiot, we took your website. That's bad. Worse is if it goes to a website that works exactly like your website, and you're like, oh, I'm on Facebook. Okay, well, I'll enter my password. Bam, they've got your password. Oh, I'll buy some little credits to play Angry Squirrels. Oh, bam, they've got your credit card number. So that's a big issue right there. Also, governments and corporations take down websites all the time without any due process. Like they say, oh, we saw the word, pirate on here. And it turns out you're like, Terran Lupo writing about stories about the days of old and pirates on the high seas. And they're like, they could be like, oh, this is a piracy site, and just take it. And when people go to it, it'll say, this has been seized by the, Department of Decency and Morality and good things that Obama likes and George Bush likes. Oh, so they do that. This can't be done nearly as easily with that. I don't want to say can't, because it's a challenge. Like you tell a safe cracker, this safe cannot be cracked, then they want to crack it. But
yeah, we're very careful to say it's resistant to some of these attacks. We don't say it's completely immune from them. There is a threat model, just like any other kind of security software. One of the other things that's interesting about Free Speech Me in particular is it doesn't just get DNS data from the Namecoin blockchain like most Namecoin software does. It also gets HTTPS fingerprints from the blockchain. And the reason why this is useful, if I want to visit a website that uses HTTPS, there's two main components in HTTPS. One of them is encryption, which is what most people are aware of. There's also authentication, verifying that the website you go to is the website that it should be. Mm-hmm. And HTTPS is often touted as the way to deal with hijacked DNS, because people will say, oh, well, if you're redirected to a false website, then the HTTPS will show an error, and so you'll be safe. Well, as it turns out, HTTPS is really not that hard to do bad things to, particularly if you're a large corporation or a decently sized government. And as an example of that,
or a decently funded, gang of criminals, like a mafia.
In July 2011, actually, which is quite recently, the HTTPS certificate authority DigiNotar was compromised. There were reports that the person who did it was affiliated with the Iranian government, although we don't really know. The attackers, whoever they were able to retrieve false certificates from this certificate authority that allowed them to securely impersonate the CIA, MI6, Facebook, Microsoft, Skype, Twitter, WordPress, Mozilla, hundreds of other targets. And what's really scary is DigiNotar didn't even notice that this had happened for over a month.
The CIA, think about that. They, like the CIA and the FBI, like the people who should be who claim they should be uncrackable. They were owned basically.
Mm. Wow. Yeah, I would say that's a pretty big security breach.
Yeah, and there are some proposals that have been made to try to improve the HTTPS system. One of those proposals is something called prospective verification, popularized by Moxie Marlinspike, who wrote the Convergence plugin for Firefox. And what that tries to do is you choose some trusted third party, and every time you visit a HTTPS website, your browser takes the certificate from them and sends it to the third party, and basically that third party checks the website themselves and says, hey, do I see the same thing? And if it sees something different, then it can tell you, oh, you're being attacked, don't trust this website. The problem is what happens if that trusted third party is also attacked. If something is being attacked on the server end, or the attack is widespread enough that it affects some of those trusted third parties, then you're no better off. Whereas what Free Speech Me does is it stores the fingerprints in the Namecoin blockchain, which is backed by proof of work since it's a blockchain. And so basically, to be able to feed false data into Free Speech Me, you would have to do a 51% attack on Namecoin, which we think is probably a lot harder than doing a man-in-the-middle attack on one or two of those trusted third parties, especially if those trusted third parties are well-known and are targets for someone who wants to attack stuff.
What Jeremy's done is kind of the difference between what Linux used to be like. I mean, GNU/Linux used to be like when it was mostly command line to when they got a GUI for it. And now it's almost like using Windows in ease. That's one thing. And the other thing is like, I'm approaching everybody I can about this, like all kinds of people, like tech people, liberty people, cryptocurrency people. And some people are getting it. There's some first adopters jumping on it, and some people have given money to our Indiegogo campaign, and it's great. And yesterday, a mind-blowing thing happened. A total stranger came out of the woods and said, this is going to change the world. I've got some Bitcoin. I want to buy ads for you, radio ads on Free Talk Live. And this guy worked it out with Free Talk Live. He bought 50 days of ads for Free Speech Me on Free Talk Live. They're reasonable, but that's not cheap. That's
I heard your ad tonight, and I was wondering how you got that. That's a cool story.
And he paid for it, 50 days on the radio show and on the podcast. So there's people like that. But then there's also people like, I'm not going to name any names, but I called one of the biggest tech blogs in the world, called him on the phone. I know him. I've known him. I've worked with them. They've been like paid me as editors before back in the day at book publishing stuff, and called him up and told him about it. They were like, oh, I don't know. That sounds interesting, but I have to go put up these pictures of squirrels in the snow with the new iPhone. And I'm like, you guys used to be cutting edge, man. What happened? And then like, I'm trying to call this other, I won't say any name, but it's a radio show that's huge. It's liberty oriented. And it's like, I know people at it, and it's something they would love and their listeners would love. And like, they're like, it's like trying to get the Pope to talk to a peasant, man. So really what this really, really needs is people to go check out freespeechme.org and look at it and realize that this is what's going to save the internet. And without this, your internet in 5 years, the way things are going, is going to be President Hillary's Facebook page is all you're going to be able to get to, or President Chris Christie's Facebook page. Like, that's all you're going to be able to view on the internet if everyone doesn't start adopting .bit, Namecoin DNS, and using Free Speech Me. And what Jeremy's planning on doing, you can go to the Indiegogo site or to freespeechme.org. He has a list of 30 or 40 improvements. We're not saying, we have this idea, give us money and we'll make this thing. We're saying, we have the thing. We have a beta. It works today. You can set up a .bit website for 10 cents and get your viewers to share this thing, and they will be able to build it and help with it and look at it. And Jeremy has plans to improve this to the point where it is going to become how the internet works. It's not just, oh, we have a cool plugin. It's like, this could be the underlying foundation of Internet 4.0. So, Jeremy, go ahead and tell what some of those improvements are.
Obviously, one of the first things we want to do is make it a little bit cleaner looking in terms of just the user interface. Right now, for example, if you're on Windows, you'll see a couple of terminal windows pop up when we launch the Namecoin software from Firefox. And obviously, that's not user-friendly. It will scare some people. We want to fix that, and that's pretty easy. But yeah, there's lots of just simple user interface stuff like that, which we want to improve. There's also security-related things we want to improve. For example, right now, if you have an incomplete blockchain in Namecoin, Free Speech Me will use whatever data you have up to that point, which, it means lots of websites won't work, but more importantly, for me, at least from a security standpoint, whoever used to control a domain may have retained some level of control after they sell it to someone else while you're still updating the blockchain. And so that's kind of dangerous.
I want to interject two quick things right there. One is that when you install Free Speech Me, you have to wait 5 hours or so for the blockchain to download. It doesn't work until that happens. We've been getting tons of emails from people who are so excited to install it. They don't read that. And they're like, I've had it in for 10 minutes. It's not working. So you got to wait 5 hours. The other thing is, currently it won't play well with the Namecoin wallet. They won't hurt each other, but you can't use one while the other's open, where Jeremy's going to fix that. It plays well with other wallets, with Bitcoin, with Litecoin. I tried it with Phoenix Coin. I'm afraid to even admit I have a Phoenix Coin wallet, but I got some as a joke. So let it download the 5 hours, and then it'll do it automatically in the background. And also don't use it while running your Namecoin wallet.
Wait a minute. This is only for Firefox right now, but it works in Windows and Linux and maybe Mac. Is that right?
We've gotten some reports that it does not work on Mac.
Okay.
That doesn't surprise me that much because it hasn't been tested on Mac. And I think some of the code from Convergence, which is what Free Speech Me is based on, has not been tested on Mac either. So that doesn't surprise me a lot. Obviously, we'd like to make it work on Mac. And if we can't do that ourselves, we'll happily contract that out to someone who does Mac Firefox extension development.
Right. And that's why people should contribute to your Indiegogo campaign.
Yeah.
Right?
Jeremy's a full-time college student, computer sciences at the University of Oklahoma. So he's doing all of this around a more than full-time school load, although summer's coming up. So eventually.
Yeah, but this is great because, you've got here a working plugin that will enable people to easily view .bit domains. You've also got some marketing behind it, and you've got a campaign to let people know about it. And I think this is a great combination because not only is it a killer app, but it's also how to translate that to the not quite so nerdy among us out there that may not know how to use it, but they do know how to download a plugin, and then you can possibly save the internet from that.
Some other things we want to do are improvements for privacy. One of the things I didn't mention yet is one other feature Free Speech Me has, which is almost entirely new, is a .bit domain, which is what Namecoin uses for its DNS. A .bit domain can point to either a Tor hidden service or an I2P service, which are anonymously hosted websites. And we think this is really important because if you have a website which someone wants to take out, basically, then even though they can't seize your DNS, well, they can just, shut down the server and then your website goes down anyway. But if you host it anonymously using Tor or I2P, we're going to add Freenet as well in the future. You can have your .bit domain point to that, and that basically gives you anonymously hosted websites that have full DNS. The thing is, since Namecoin is blockchain-based, it has anonymity issues. So just like Bitcoin is not really anonymous, it's pseudonymous, Namecoin is also pseudonymous. And so we would like to make some improvements so that either people who are browsing websites using Free Speech Me or people who are hosting .bit domains using Tor or I2P so that they can have a little bit more anonymity rather than just pseudonymity. And some of that we can work on. Some of that might take collaborations with other people. But again, anything that we can't do, if we get enough money through Indiegogo, we will happily contract that out.
But there's a guy named John Gilmore, who's a computer scientist, who said something that's been quoted a lot. And it was, the net interprets censorship as damage and routes around it. That's absolutely true. But the weak point in that, the weak chain in that, is DNS controlled through things like ICANN, which I call, it stands for something long and silly and computer related and, scientific, one of them book learning things. But, I say it stands for I can take your website because the government controls me. And they have similar things in other countries. And pretty much any dot whatever, if it's not .bit and it's not through the blockchain, pretty much any other domain name, your domain can be taken by a government agency or by a big corporation demanding a government do it with like a letter. I mean, they can write a letter. A lawyer can send an email, and some department of something can write, any 3-letter agency can write to ICANN, and they'll take it down, and there's no due process. They've stolen your property. And
they should call it ICANN has your website.
ICANN has your website. Yeah.
So what I understand, and please go ahead if you have more.
I was just going to say, one of the things we're doing to promote this, we have a 3-minute video we made. It's up on YouTube. It's linked at freespeechme.org. I'm getting people to do language translations of it, to translate it text, and then also the same person or a different person read it and do a decent recording of it. And I'm going to make different language versions of this video because I really think we can't have a US centric view with a program like this. It has to be worldwide. So far we've got people working on that right now. I say that my job is I'm the free speech me cat herder. That's my official job explanation. And I did a lot today of just going back and forth, people answering their question. What does this mean? What does this mean? And getting people to work on translations in French, German, Greek, Farsi, for Iran, Portuguese, Serbo-Croatian, Arabic, Turkish, Japanese, Spanish, and Catalan or Catal, I don't know how it's pronounced, but it's a version of Spanish, or it's a variety of Spanish derivation that's actually kind of like a separatist language. So I think there's only like 7 million native speakers in the world, but I'm like, oh, it's people who are rebels. Yeah, we want it in that. And the guy who did the Spanish could do it too. So we need translators in any other language, but in particular, we're trying to get it in Korean, Russian, Ukrainian, Italian, and Chinese. So wow. If anyone speaks those languages, drop us a line, go to freespeechme.org, click on meet the team or contact. Our email address is at both places. We can't pay a lot for it right now because we haven't made a lot yet, but we'll pay one name coin for translating it and another name coin for recording it. And, I'll also give you a little bit of tech help in setting up Free Speech Me or especially a .bit domain. That's another thing we need is people to set up .bit versions of their .com or whatever and give it out to their users. And also set up, if you want, this is kind of cool. I actually set up a couple of .bit only domains. And one is it's a kitty cat picture site called .bitkittypics.bit. If you have Free Speech Me, yeah, because it's like the kitty cats drive the .com internet, and I figure they really should also drive the .bit internet.
That's how you know it's made it, right?
Yep.
What is the process for registering a .bit domain, and what do you do after you register a .bit domain? How do you host it, and how do you set it all up?
First, you need to obtain some name coins, which is a currency just like Bitcoin. You can obtain it at an exchange. Some people mine it if they have mining hardware. You could probably sell a product for Namecoin if you really wanted to, since it's technically a currency, although most people wouldn't do that. Once you've obtained some Namecoins, you need the Namecoin wallet software.
And how much Namecoin do you need?
To register one domain requires destroying one name cent, so 0.01 Namecoins. And then you also have to pay around another half of a name cent as a transaction fee.
So just to give people an idea, right now the price of one name coin is about around $4 or about 6 millibits. So we're talking about 50 cents to register a domain.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit less than that. Yeah, it's cheap. It's cheap. Yeah. So once you've done that and you've entered either the IP address or DNS name server address or whatever, and you can also enter an HTTPS fingerprint at this point in case you want to use HTTPS, which is actually secured by the blockchain. And once you do that, the Namecoin QT client will wait for 12 blocks while that first transaction gets confirmed. And it has to wait 12 blocks so that someone else can't see that you're registering a certain domain and then take it from you by paying a higher transaction fee, because that would obviously suck. So after this 12 blocks, it sends in another transaction which confirms that, yes, this is my name and I actually want it to point to this, and it points to that from that on. And after you've done that, you can either right-click on the name in Namecoin QT and hit update, and you can type in a new IP address or something like that. Or you can use a command line application if you want to script something. So if you want to automatically have it update with dynamic DNS or something, there's actually a tool that I've written which can do that for you. So programmers can have lots of fun making their names automatically update based on the outside world. And you have to issue at least one update every 36,000 blocks. Otherwise, your name will expire. And that's basically so that if someone loses their keys to their wallet, eventually the domain will get released back into the world so someone else can use it, or the same user can get it again with a different wallet.
Right now, that's about every 8 months. when I first went on a bunch of months ago to check this out and register some domain names, freedomfiends.bit had been cyber squatted. And I don't know if it's been cyber
Freedom
squatted.
Fiends is your podcast, by the way.
Yeah, it's my radio show. And it had been taken. And unless somebody puts a note in the blockchain with their email address, or they point it to a site that says, contact me and give me $50,000, or contact me and I'll give this to you free because I'm your fan. There's no way to figure it out that I know of. But I just kept checking and looking at the blockchain counting down and just waited for it to expire and grabbed it like the minute it was available. And I did the same thing for Bad Quaker, Ben Stone's podcast, badquaker.com. I grabbed badquaker.bit. And the really cool thing is, now that we've been doing this, Jeremy and I have sort of turned into an unofficial ICANN, libertarian ICANN, or free market ICANN, because all these people that have been first adopters of this have seen what Jeremy's done and are so excited about it. They're contacting us and they're saying, hey, I have stefanmolyneux.bit. Would you like to offer it to him? And I'm like, yeah, send it to me. And I see he sends it to me, and then I have it, and then I contact Stefan and he doesn't get back to me. But when he does, I'll have it for him for free.
So if you have a .bit domain, how does the hosting work? You still have to have hosting for it, right?
There's a few answers to that. Right now, your web server either has to have a dedicated IP address, in which case there's no other configuration you have to do, or if it's not a dedicated IP address, you're going to have to make sure that there's a virtual host set up on that server so that it knows that when it gets a request for something .bit, that it points it to the same folder on the server that the .com is pointing to. Now, in the future, there's actually a proposal which I wrote, which I think will get implemented in the future, which would actually have the Free Speech Me plugin handle that conversion. So the way that would work is, in the future, you can register a .bit domain in Namecoin, and you can put a note in the blockchain that basically says, I want this .bit domain to point to a .com domain that already exists, but I don't want to have the server know that it's .bit. The server can think it's still .com. And Free Speech Me will just sort of magically change the HTTP headers so that it just works.
I didn't know
That's
about
not
that
implemented
one.
yet,
Awesome.
but that is planned.
And Jeremy, when Jeremy says I'm planning on implementing this, or that he's written this, it's not like some guy. He's actually. Are you on the Namecoin development team technically? I know that you've done some work with that and put some things that are being implemented, right?
Yeah, I don't know that there's one specific definition of a Namecoin development team, but I am on some of the internal mailing lists. So if that counts, then yeah.
Well, and you've also written some things that are probably going to be implemented in Namecoin, right?
Right. Several of the specifications that have been proposed for Namecoin, which either have been or will soon be implemented, were written or co-written by me.
Cool.
Yeah, cool. I think you've given people a pretty good overview of what they might need to set up a .bit domain if they're somebody who makes websites, or to register .bit domains and maybe give them to other people, or to install the Free Speech Me plugin. And I think we've painted a picture for people of why they might want to start using .bit domains and what the benefits might be of doing that. You've got an Indiegogo campaign going right now, and what you want, basically what you're asking for, is to raise some money to be able to improve the Free Speech Me plugin and implement some new features. And I have to say, your t-shirts are really cool. Like, if you donate to their Indiegogo campaign, you will get a t-shirt that says, I saved the internet and all I got was this lousy t-shirt.
Glad you like it.
I love it. I love it. I'm going to have to send you.
If I can briefly elaborate on that.
Yes.
So the funds we're raising are not just for Free Speech Me itself. We're also looking to improve other related Namecoin software. For example, right now we're bundling the Namecoin D client, which is basically the command line version of Namecoin Qt. So there's lots of software that Free Speech Me relies on, and we want to make sure that that software gets improvements where it needs it as well. So about half of the things we've listed as things we want to do are for Free Speech Me itself. The other half are for related software, which basically has the same goals, but which Free Speech Me needs that software to work. And free speech benefits that software.
It's kind of one ecosystem. It's hard to explain as, most people think of a plugin like, well, you want to improve the plugin, but you want to improve some cryptocurrency? I don't get it. But the way I put it is that what's good for Namecoin is good for Free Speech Me, and what's good for Free Speech Me is good for Namecoin. And I'll stress this again. This isn't just, we have a plugin. Like somebody came out with a plugin a few years ago that was kind of neat. It was a Firefox add-in that had a continually updating list of blocked websites, and then you could go to the blocked websites through their DNS. But, the people doing it had to maintain it. It wasn't always accurate. They actually got like a threatening letter from the government for that. We haven't gotten anything like that yet, but we'll see. But that wasn't like this. That was just a trick. This is a whole new ecosystem of how to run the internet. It's very bold to say that, but it's true. If you're technical, go check out what Jeremy's got written down for what he wants to do, and you'll get it. And if you're not, install the plugin and you'll go, man, this is neat. I get it.
Yes. And go to freespeechme.org and you're going to find out not only about the plugin, but you can download it right now. It's available right now. It's not just something that they're going to build. You can also learn how to set up a .bit version of your website. They've got a tutorial there. They've got a video, which of course is being translated into different languages. And of course, they've got the Indiegogo campaign and some reasons why you might want to support this. So I really encourage everybody to go there. I think it's a really cool project, and I'd love to have you guys back on to see how it develops. And I think this is going to be really big. People can find you, of course, at freespeechme.org. But Jeremy, do you have a personal way that people can get in touch with you, Twitter or anything like that you want to give out?
I have a personal website, veclabs.net. That's veclabs.net. And that's basically for pretty much all of the programming projects I've done over the past few years. It's not updated very often. I'll warn you of that. But if people are curious what the Free Speech Me programmer does in his spare time, you can see some other stuff I've done.
He builds robots.
That is so cool. Somebody's going to scoop you up and hire you right out of college, I think.
I think they already have. Don't you have like a robot building summer job coming up or something?
I've had some robotics internships in the past. I don't know about this summer. We'll see how that goes.
Sweet. All right. So your website, Vec Labs, and Michael W. Dean is the host of the Freedom Fiends radio show and podcast. And people can find that at freedomfiends.bit, right?
.bit and .com. .bit if you have the Free Speech Me plugin, and .com if you don't.
Yeah, and Vec Labs is also available at .bit. Although for Vec Labs' .bit, you need HTTPS because I'm like that.
Okay, guys, thank you so much. This has been awesome.
The BitGive Foundation is a nonprofit charitable giving organization leveraging the power of the Bitcoin community to improve public health and the environment worldwide. Help us demonstrate the significant impact of Bitcoin in addressing these critical issues on a global scale. Support international giving in Bitcoin. Please visit our website at www.bitgivefoundation.org. That's www.bitgivefoundation.org.